This is a podcast about both having autism and living with someone who has autism. My mom is Sonya, and I'm Josh, and this is Josh Has Autism.
Hey everybody, welcome to Josh Has Autism.
Hello.
We're at it again. And I've actually, Josh, I just want to start out with I've missed you this week.
Yeah?
Yes, for very good reason.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big deal. It's a milestone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. So, you did something that I was told by doctors that you would not do. But I was also told, keep in mind, I was told that you would never go to mainstream school. You would never go to a mainstream school for your education.
Mm-hmm. Did that.
Mm-hmm. That you were not going to have any friends.
I have those.
You were not going to be able to drive.
I drive.
Mm-hmm. And you were not going to be able to work. And
I have a job.
yeah. Yeah. Good deal.
Yeah.
And that is definitely a milestone.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I was talking to your Nana about this, and she had the same thought that I did, even though she didn't know I had this thought. So she said the same thing that I actually had written down already, which was that in a strange way, I guess that parents think of, I guess we have like an idea of when things should happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've talked before about how I don't know how anybody goes straight from high school into college and is successful.
Right.
I tried it that way. I had to go back as an adult to do it because I wasn't mature enough to handle college right out of high school.
You're mature now?
Shut up. But she thought the same thing that I did, which is that you're 30 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and for some, that would seem really late to be starting a job, to have a job and to get out there in the workforce and
Be productive.
in this particular way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for you, it just feels right.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like, it's sort of like even, I don't know, I know this isn't accurate, but it feels like even if this had happened like a week or two before, it's almost like you weren't ready, but right when everything came together, it was the right job in the right time with the right people.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
To be honest, though, just a week or two before that, I was 29.
Oh, true. True. Yeah, right. Maybe you had to enter your third decade in order for you to be ready to take off like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it feels right. So we've talked before about you going to college, going to trade school, or getting a job.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have decided that getting a job is what you want to do. You tried college, and you're just saying it's not for you.
Yeah.
Right. So how did it go? You worked for a week now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did, and it was tiring, and it just went really well, though.
Yeah?
Yeah. And, I mean, we haven't said the name of the what I did I?
Mm-mm.
It's pressure washing and window cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's hard work,
Mm-hmm.
but it is really easy for me to get in the zone on it.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Mm.
So it's really cool. I want you to elaborate on that, because what happens for people that don't know about pressure washing, there's different types of equipment that you use depending on what it is that you're pressure washing.
Yes.
Sometimes there's a wand.
Mm-hmm.
It's hooked up to a machine. It's high pressure coming out of the wand, and sometimes it's hot, and sometimes it's not, and sometimes you push machines when it's on the ground. You know, it's this big round thing, different sizes, but
yeah, it's essentially two wands put together that spin in a circle. Mm-hmm. And underneath a canister,
like a metal kind of canister type thing
that protects you from the splash.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you had a little bit of experience with that because your dad for a while owned a pressure washing company years ago until he sold that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember doing it twice a week with the asphalt trucks.
Yeah.
And it was tough. One thing you're not prepared for is that the pressure that comes out of that hose
pushes you back.
It does. Like you have to get a firm stance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you have to put the wand above your head, you know, it's exhausting.
Yeah. Let alone just holding the trigger.
Yeah.
For it is it's a 4-finger trigger. Mm-hmm. So like you have to use your all of your hand to close it and use it. Mm-hmm. And just holding that down for literally hours upon hours is tiring.
Right. Right. And so what is it that is like soothing for you about it?
Everything I do has a pattern to it.
It's like a job made for you.
Yeah. Like whenever you go to, let's say, a mall or something like that, whenever you're walking up to the mall and you get off the parking lot onto the sidewalk, there's squares in the concrete. You know what I mean?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So each of those squares are in alignment with each other, and I essentially go square by square, and I go forward, backwards, over, forward, backwards, over, forward, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And it is very repetitive and tedious. Mm-hmm. You can't go too fast because otherwise you'll leave stuff behind. Mm-hmm.
Like it misses portions, or it doesn't have the time to really get it clean?
Both.
Okay.
Both. And then that's usually with the circular one that I use that with. Mm-hmm. After that, you then put on the wand, which looks like a pistol with like a barrel that's like 5 times as long as the handle. Right. Mm-hmm. But that is then used to wash away all the remnants that come up, all the dirty water and everything like that, so it doesn't sink back in, as well as to get up all the little black circles of things, which is gum. Mm-hmm. So every time that you go into a mall or whatever and you see all these black circles that are raised up a tiny bit from the concrete, that's all gum.
So once it's there, it's just stuck.
Yeah, and the pressure washer gets it up.
Yeah, very cool. The part that I like about pressure washing is that if you take a dirty sidewalk and you put this pressure washer down, and you have to do it in a methodical way. Yeah. You really do. Otherwise, it's just going to be scattered and it doesn't look as nice.
Right.
So you go back and forth.
Yeah.
And in a pattern.
And you can literally see the difference.
And it's so cool to see the difference. Yeah. I don't know what it is about this. I have no idea. Like it's so satisfying. Yeah. To see that the change, like I don't know if that could be some.
It's almost like it's instant gratification kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, but it's really cool. And so there's more to the job than the patterns.
Yes.
But you're saying that when you're doing the work, that's something that you're very comfortable with because it's patterns.
And I get in the zone of doing those patterns, yes.
Okay. All right. What makes it such difficult work?
Well, going back with the example of a mall or a shopping center or something like that, that's what we do overnight sometimes. Right. And, I mean, this isn't just a little shopping mall kind of thing. This is like 3 or 4 big name retail stores, along with other smaller stores interspersed between them.
Right.
And we're doing all of their sidewalks.
Right.
In one night. And then you do it again the next night.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not every day of every week or anything like that. It certainly isn't. It is broken up, so to speak.
Okay.
Sometimes it will be like that, where it's a couple of days in a row. But sometimes it'll instead be something different, like window cleaning. Which, it's hard to get a squeegee to go even with water. It is.
Is there a pattern with the window washing?
Yeah, there is actually. You take what is called a mop. It's more like a sponge thing, like a sponge version of mop, rather than like the braided.
Right.
Yeah, and it is that's used to clean the window, and then you use a squeegee and wipe all that off. And you have to make sure there's nothing left over on it. Then you use a rag to get whatever little water comes off of that. That doesn't come off the window.
All right. You know, you might be getting a squeegee for Christmas. I got some windows that need to be cleaned.
You gonna pay me?
I'm gonna pay you. Yeah, that's fair. That's funny. I used to say that when people would say, "Oh, you're a comedian, tell me a joke."
Yeah.
Yeah, give me some money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. So, the first thing that comes to mind that would be hard for me if I had to do that would be staying awake all night to do a job like that.
Yeah.
One thing that I know with you, though, is that your sleeping patterns are very different anyway.
Yeah.
You've always had a hard time sleeping at night. So it's something that you would, I guess if your natural clock, I guess, is one that you would probably typically, I don't know, you're ready to go to sleep around 3. I think it's
between 1 and 3, yeah.
And there's been times you get up and go, I just couldn't sleep last night.
Yeah.
So was it hard staying awake when you had to do the night shift?
To be honest, the only time that I got really tired was the last night that I was there, and it was more so because the previous 2 nights I'd gotten a total of maybe 7 hours of sleep.
Right. And and so you're doing something that is physical. That's new, but this was this week was your week of training.
Yeah.
And so how did you feel about that? Do you feel like did you catch on?
Yeah. And one of the other, so with the guy that I was working with also has autism, and he is he's learning how to be a manager. So he's he was kind of thrown in the deep end, kind of like how I was.
Yes.
Because he isn't totally knowledgeable on how to interact with other people whenever they're under him.
Right, sure. I get it.
Yeah.
Because you've told me one time before that you want to be in charge of things, you don't want to be in charge of people.
Yes.
And yet, since you've grown, you are really good at working with people, especially, when they're younger.
Yeah.
Like, I know that we've talked to Dr. Ogilvy before, and that you go to mentor the group. So the middle school kids, and you go to those groups and you help to mentor those, and so you've gotten really good at communicating with them. And she says you do an amazing job. She says you're going to put her out of a job because you're so good at that. But this company, they've said that they would come on a podcast with me to talk about their company.
Oh, cool!
And I'm just so impressed with what they've done. They've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But their employees, all of their employees, I believe, are autistic.
Most of them, yeah.
And they have a really effective way of communicating, it seems. An effective way of teaching and interacting. And I think that's... I want to know what you feel about that. What did they do, and how did they interact with you to help you feel comfortable and confident in this job?
Well, one of the things that they did was that they treat their employees like they do their clients. They're very accommodating. They're very, what do you need so that we can have you functioning?
Okay.
And it's very nice to work with them whenever they're like that.
Does it take a lot of the anxiety out of it?
Yeah, it does.
Because the first thing that comes to mind for me when you say that is that if you, and I know this from observing you, that when there's things that you have to do on a rigid schedule, you can begin to get really stressed out.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like the owners of this company that are now your bosses seem to understand that and go out of their way to alleviate that then.
Yeah.
So do they, what's an example?
Well, the last night that I was working, we were supposed to do 2 small shopping centers. And we were able to get one of the places done, and then we were just exhausted, and we were having issues left and right
with what?
The pressure washer.
Oh, so the equipment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we weren't able to get the second place done, and then be able to get back home safely.
Okay.
So we called up the boss, and we told him what was going on. He's like, "You guys come finish up what you're doing. Come on back." And he took care of it himself that day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He went and did the work?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he took care of the second place.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that makes it much more comfortable for you then.
Yes.
Because a lot of the stress that you've described that you feel, just in interaction, but especially when something is demanding, that would be such a relief for you to know that you can have those conversations, that it doesn't have to be... You can have a plan, but it sounds like they kind of go with the flow.
Yeah.
That it doesn't have to be set in stone.
Right. That there are options in case those set in stone things don't work. Like those set guidelines don't work. Like we had at one point the sprayer that goes in a circle, it clogged up. And so we had to replace the little heads that the water comes out of. And that put us back like an hour. And I mean, it was unexpected. And like I said, it put us back some. But there was a procedure in place for if that had happened.
Was that in writing?
No.
Okay. So the manager, the person that you worked with that is in the learning how to manage, he's been doing the work for a while, so he knew what to do?
Yes.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
And he pointed it out to me what I needed to do to fix it. And he did it himself, but he showed me what he was doing and why he was doing it.
And was it something that as you went, were there any times that you felt like you were not comfortable with how things were going, or you felt pretty confident the whole time?
There were times where we butted heads.
Okay.
But, I mean, for the most part, things worked out okay.
Okay.
Actually, all of it worked out okay. It was just a difference of opinion between two people with autism.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That could be.
So what I ended
that
up
could be tricky.
Yeah. So what I ended up doing was, he's in charge of me.
Right.
So I have to defer to him. Didn't like it,
right.
but I also knew that he wouldn't change his mind about things.
So let me ask you about that. When he told you, you had, so just like popped in my head. So if this is not the way this scenario went, just to correct me, okay?
Okay.
But if you had, you saw something that needed a decision made, and you could see what would work best, and then you voiced that, and then he said that it was going to be done a different way. How is it that you handled not having it done your way? Let me just point out that you took a deep breath just now.
Yeah.
So yeah. I could tell that, let's just say that whatever your answer is, it took a great deal of effort on your part. I can tell.
Yeah. Well, he never said, let's do it my way. Well, actually, yes, he did once. But it was more along the lines of, but we have to do it this way. And that's what he would say, is that, but we have to do it this way. So I know that a couple of times I wanted to know if this was the way we needed to do it, or if this way would be more effective, or what have you. And sometimes they throw him for a loop, and he didn't really know an answer, so he went with, but that's what we do.
So that's how it's been done.
Yeah.
That's how it's been done, so that's the way it needs to be done.
Yeah.
And
right,
that makes sense.
Yeah. And so I would have to defer to him even if I didn't really like the answer. Because he's the one who's in charge of me.
Right. And was that something that was easy for you to work through and let go?
It was easy to let go of it. It was not easy to try and deal with it at the time.
Explain that.
Our personalities clashed sometimes. So it was, like I said, two people with autism trying to figure out who's right.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's a hassle no matter how you look at it.
It's a challenge for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you've experienced me digging in my heels whenever I think I'm right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now imagine if it was two people like that going towards each other.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
That's why I asked the question, because when you feel like you've got the answer figured out,
Mm-hmm.
and you see and you're visualizing the best way to accomplish something,
Mm-hmm.
it's really sometimes near impossible, or if not absolutely impossible, for you to change your mind.
Right.
So yeah, that's why I asked about that.
In this case, one of the only reasons that I went along with what he was saying and didn't put up much of a fight for it,
Mm-hmm.
well, it was two reasons. One, he was the boss
Mm-hmm.
in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And two, he has more experience with this kind of stuff than I do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And he's supposed to be teaching me how to do things.
Right.
And so I knew that I had to follow his example regardless of if I thought I knew better.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
And so I had to push my feelings aside, my
Mm-hmm.
opinions aside,
Mm-hmm.
and grit my teeth and work
Mm-hmm.
through it.
So I have a question about that. So you had an idea. He made the decision. He explained to you that this is how it has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So while you're doing that, then is it gone then? Do you let it go? Like you just start doing it and you let it go? Or while you're doing it, are you thinking that this would have been so much better if it was done my way?
It was about 50-50
Okay.
in the sense that some of the time, or half the time, he'd actually be right.
Okay.
And then half the time I think, well, this might have worked better.
Mm-hmm.
But
Was that shocking to you when you discovered that on some occasions his way was right?
it wasn't shocking it so much as it was, oh, okay. And then I move on.
Right. Right. Kind of a surprise, though.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. But with that being said, sometimes he would take my opinions into consideration, and he listened to what I had to say.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, we didn't always agree on things,
Right.
but sometimes he did take what I said into consideration and actually implement them.
Mm-hmm. So he's learning to be a manager.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, he's autistic
Mm-hmm.
as well. How do you think he did? Just learning, he's learned how it's done.
Yeah.
Now he's in a different. I was going to say mindset. I don't think that applies.
No.
He's in a different position.
Yes.
Um.
He's not. He is used to working by himself,
Mm-hmm.
doing pressure washing and window cleaning,
Mm-hmm.
and so he was not fully prepared. I don't think, like he himself was not fully prepared to teach someone.
Sure.
With that being said, this is just my view of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed like he had to teach more by example than by words,
Okay.
because they
So he would show you.
yes,
Instead of telling you how to do it, he would show you how to do it.
while we're working.
Okay.
And so one reason that I think that came about
Mm-hmm.
was because of my prior experience working with Dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so he didn't consider. Oh, in his words, I was rusty.
Okay. Yeah. How
And-
did you take that?
I was.
Okay.
I was rusty because it had been
number of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I knew I was rusty, and that was the first night he said that.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, he had nothing negative to say.
Mm-hmm.
And which was a happy surprise to the owner.
Mm-hmm.
Because they usually they don't get that high of praise from him for people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I bet that felt pretty good.
Yeah, that felt really good.
Well, it sounds like it was a really good opportunity for him to have his first experiences in management.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, both finding your way at the same time, but it sounds like he was successful.
Yeah.
And so were you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things. I just had a question in my head, and then the question flew out of my head.
Oh, that happens all the time.
Oh my gosh.
With me, at least.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, I know what it was. So this company is I have to say that the owners of this company are just wonderful people.
Yeah.
They're the kind of people that you just go, well, you have faith in humans.
Yeah.
They're just really good people.
Yeah.
So what they want to do, it seems like, is to be able to give you an opportunity, not just for a job, not just to have a job,
Right.
but to have a career in this.
Yeah.
And it will take time, but ultimately, I think that you've told me that what you want ultimately is to have your own team, your own truck,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
And to be able to be the boss and to be able to go and, have somebody work for you
Yeah.
as you go out and you do these jobs.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Somewhat. Yes, I want to be able to further myself with this as a career.
Mm-hmm.
I still would rather work with things than people.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, working with people, not with them under me, but with just with people, is very helpful in this kind of work.
Right.
And so at this point in time, I'm not interested, but I'm not interested either.
In being a manager.
Right.
Sure.
Like if that's what happens, that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not something I'm setting a goal towards or anything.
Right. Okay. Well, that's different. I thought that ultimately that kind of was what you had wanted.
Oh.
It maybe I misunderstood. Okay. So if that happens, it just happens.
Yeah, and good for me for making it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I agree with that.
Yeah.
What is the hardest part of this job?
The boots I have to wear almost go up to my knees because they're waterproof and everything like that. They're essentially rain boots.
Mm-hmm. The rubber boots.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to bend down to pick things up, and then standing back up all the time, trying to move the hoses and everything.
Uh-huh.
I don't have the best knees or back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tedious having to do all that.
Mm-hmm.
So it whenever it comes to the end of the day, I'm sore and stiff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So it gives you a big workout working there.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's physically demanding, isn't it?
yes.
Yeah. When you take the stuff off the truck, do you have to lift it out of the truck, or does it come down a ramp, or how does that work?
Most of the stuff we take out of the truck is hoses.
Okay.
Or the wand or the circular spinning thing, which I think is called a hydro scrubber.
Okay.
But
are they heavy or awkward?
Well, the wands are 5 pounds.
Right.
But the there's 2 sizes of them, of the circular ones. One's 12-inch, one's 24-inch. That's in regards to the diameter of how far it goes.
Right.
And
because height-wise, isn't it only like 6 inches?
Not
something
even.
Like that.
Not even. It's more like 3.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And from the ground up, for where it spins, and the top of the cylinder that it's in, it's about 3 inches. And then it has a handle at about belly height. For me, at least.
Right.
And for Nana, it'd be head height.
Yes.
And so I'm able to push it without having to bend over or anything. But they weigh. The 12-inch one probably weighs 30 pounds, and the 24-inch one probably weighs around 50 or 60.
Okay. You have to lift them out of the...
Yes.
Okay.
And to put them away, we have to lift them up off the ground and then lift it over the side of the truck and put it in.
Okay.
And then there's the second pressure washer there. Because there's 2 of them on the truck and trailer. The second one is in the truck, and I could not lift it alone.
Oh, okay.
So, the guy in charge of me and myself were both having difficulty lifting it up and putting it into the trailer. So that it could reach the water supply.
So it sounds like this job needs 2 people.
Usually, yes.
Okay.
With that being said, one of the pressure washers is already in the trailer. And
It stays put?
Stays put.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you feel now? Like, you've done this for a week. How do you feel physically?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted, actually, but... I'm feeling really good about myself.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. It seemed that way.
Yeah.
It did seem that way. So this week when you were working, when you were getting trained doing this, you seemed wiped out.
Yeah.
Pretty much just flat out exhausted.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you had it sounded like you felt good about yourself.
Yeah.
Like you were accomplishing something that made you happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing was that sometimes we'd work nights, sometimes we'd work days, and the owner would make sure that it would never be on the same day.
Oh, I see.
Like let's say I work at night one day, the following day I'd have off, and either that night I'd work, or the following day I would work.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's super helpful that they have an understanding of what autism is, how it can, different effects that it has on you, and to take care of you in that particular way, because there's people that I know that have jobs that sometimes work until midnight and have to be at work 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
Restaurants is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
It's just tough.
Yeah.
So it all went pretty well then, right?
Yeah.
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 So it sounds like you're going to be working to start with now, like 1 to 2 days a week. And with the potential just to have that build to full time.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Good
so
deal.
I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And does this feel right to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably because of all the patterns, but
yeah. That is pretty amazing.
yeah.
And it's like, how perfect is that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Since patterns are such a huge part of your life, to get a job where you're completing patterns,
Yeah.
seems perfect. Do you ever listen to music while you're doing it? Do you have earphones and everything?
I don't.
Okay.
The manager does though.
Oh, okay.
And so sometimes whenever I'm trying to talk to him, he's oblivious.
Oh, okay. Should you go tap him?
Sometimes I have to yell at him
Oh, okay.
to get his attention.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like 100 yards away from him or something.
Right, and that's something that I think too is probably really good for you, in that not only is it patterns, but like you said, you just get into the zone.
Yeah.
And you're on your own. You're just like you're in your element.
Yeah.
There, just accomplishing what you need to accomplish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm really proud of you, and I'm really grateful for this job. Because I can tell that it's just had a positive impact already, and
Yeah.
we'll report back and let everybody know how it's going.
All right.
So anyway, I'm congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, job well done.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
All right. Well, that's all for today, unless you have anything else to share.
I'm awesome.
You're awesome, yes. All right, everybody. Hey, thanks so much for listening. And I've asked you this before. It does make a difference if you'll go find us on iTunes and give us a 5-star review.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic if you liked what we did. If, again, as always, if you don't like what we did, never mind. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for hanging out with us again. Love you.
Bye.